What's up everyone, Shirley here. I hope you all enjoyed that little intro there. That was under the effects of a Zerker buff, of course. I wanted to make a video today kind of showcasing my favorite traits right now for PvP on my warrior, that being Crushing Assault. Now before we get into the details of that and why, I'm a little bit hesitant to actually release this video today because the last time I did a video on an Azerite trait, Seismic Wave, it was nerfed the very next week, so hopefully that doesn't happen again with 8.1 or anything just around the corner. But it's been long enough now, I feel like if Blizzard was going to nerf this thing, they would have already. Fortunately though, I have got two 390 pieces of this trait and a 375. I could have three 390s, but you know, I'd have to pay costs for my raid set every week to change that back and forth, which is just not really feasible. But anyway, going back to the footage in the trait here, I have a lot of people ask me what I run in PvP at the moment. And there's a couple of builds you can actually run setup-wise for your Azerite. One, what I was running for a long time before I actually had these pieces was just kind of a hodgepodge of gear. I had a Lord of War after like 3 nerfs, which mean it wasn't very good, but you take what you can get. I had a Tidal Surge, which was surprisingly effective. It procs quite often actually in PvP. And then I had a Battlefield Focus. And with Battlefield Focus, that one's pretty interesting for arms right now. If you have 1 or even 2 of them, or even 3 would be the best, I suppose. I've never seen anybody run it with 3 yet, but 2 is great. You can actually swap out of Massacre and run Rend in PvP, because Rend and Deep Wounds will have a chance to proc the Battlefield Focus, especially if you're hitting multiple targets. Nice 30k slam on that Demon Hunter there. Which means that you have just crazy spread pressure and uptime on everything. Now, you can actually run Rend right now as well without Battlefield Focus, but I feel like it's much better with it. So if you don't have it, or you have slam traits, Crushing Assault in this case, you can run this build, which is the standard Massacre PvE build, basically, except you're swapping out Avatar and Sudden Death, of course, in those respective talent rows. But basically, you don't do as much spread pressure throughout the course of a match or a battleground as with this build as you would with some of the other just kind of consistent damage builds. But what this build does allow is huge burst potential in setups. So you notice I'll save my Avatar and my Trinket. I had the on-use PvP Trinket that gives you versatility for a proc, basically. And in the arena, you can kind of set up the same way, although in arena, it's usually better just to keep up pressure rather than waiting for a proc. Now, there is one downside to this trait. That's not it, though. That 50k hit. That was without a Zerker buff, too, and that can happen in arena. But the downside to this trait is that it's super inconsistent. Usually, it doesn't really proc that often, which is a real shame. It'd probably be a bit OP if it did. But honestly, at the beginning of this battleground, that first fight over by the waterworks, that was the most procs I've gotten, like, ever, back to back in a short window, so don't expect that to be normal. Usually it's 1, maybe 2 a minute, I'd say. It's probably once every 45 seconds on average, give or take. But it makes it really nice for setups, and you can hit 30Ks, non-crit all day long. Depending on their armor, now it is really affected by armor, so you'll see if I hit a druid that pops into bear form, it's going to be heavily mitigated, unfortunately. But if you can catch him out of form, or in cat, see I hit him right there for 17k because he was in bear. That's still a good hit. That's still hitting harder than your Execute, or your Mortal Strike, or even Warbreaker without any Lord of Wars on top of it, so it's still a nice chunk of burst regardless. But if you can hit a Clothy, or catch somebody without their Trinket and a stun, and they don't have any defensives up, they don't have Bark Skin or any externals or whatever, you can see what happened to that Druid at the very beginning. You just global people, you know, with the right amount of pressure, especially in 3s if you got a Shaman or something hitting stuff with you. The setup potential on Crushing Assault is really nuts. But, yeah, the other traits right now is, you know, Battlefield Focus is great, but maintaining Rend is really difficult because of how expensive it is. I feel like you would almost want to run Skull Splitter in PvP with it, But other times, if you're taking damage, you have a mass influx of rage coming in all the time, so it's not even an issue. So it really depends on like what you're fighting and if you're expecting to get trained down, whether or not you would actually want to use Skull Splitter in PvP. Normally, though, I would just recommend sticking with Sudden Death all the time right now for both setups. Excuse me. But right here, I was waiting for a proc. Unfortunately, he got into bear form before I could hit him with the hammer there. But we're going to go ahead and chop down this druid anyway. I don't really have much else to say about it right now, but I really hope that this trait doesn't get nerfed. And there is a new trait coming out in 8.1 just to tie up things here at the end. It's buffs overpower coming up, and it also lowers the cooldown on Mortal Strike on Tactician procs. When it procs, it'll do extra damage and lower the cooldown on your next MS. Now that is replacing our Executioner's Precision trait, if you didn't know, which means that we won't have that for the raid anymore, which kind of sucks, but hopefully the new trait is competitive in both environments, being PvP and PvE. That reminds me, I wanted to touch on why I thought this trait was so good right now in PvP. Kind of the whole point of this video, I suppose, is basically it's the only viable trait that hasn't been nerfed by Blizzard for Arms Warriors, and I'm not talking about all the standard traits and all the stuff that's shared. I'm talking about Arms Warrior specific stuff. Most everything I could think of off the top of my head anyway has been nerfed in PvP for Arms, except for Crushing Assault. So that's why you can get these really nice big hits on people, even though it's inconsistent. When they do come up, it is really, really devastating to the enemy team. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the Battleground video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.